Like a dormant volcano, tensions between the police and residents of American cities have been boiling for decades. There's an incident followed by protests, then violence, then it subsides or it's subdued by force. But the anger never really goes away. Shopkeepers still talk about the mob that destroyed a life's work within minutes. Mothers and fathers share stories from the fog of confusion that resulted in an injured son or daughter. Cities have spent millions on blue ribbon commissions, studies, and specially trained personnel to understand the root causes of violence. But what if there was a solution that hasn't been seriously considered, at least not in a large-scale way? How can cities prevent the inevitable next wave of unrest? Since 2016, a Pennsylvania man has been leading a conversation in his city that seems to be working. Stay with us. It was 2016 when a white classical Christian school headmaster in York, Pennsylvania, a racially diverse county of 450,000 people in central Pennsylvania, invited black ministers, chiefs of police, and other area pastors to begin a monthly meeting together. The purpose? To create dialogue and build trust between members of law enforcement and the community. There was nothing like it. And there were plenty of reasons it shouldn't work. But today, several years later, they met for another weekly meeting and community relations with law enforcement couldn't be stronger. Watch this.
So back in 2016, we started meeting together. But 4 years ago, we saw things happening around the nation and we said, this is not the way we want to see our community policed, and we don't want to see our community blow up the way other communities were blowing up in the United States. And we met right here at Logos Academy, about 70 of us, clergy and police chiefs.
That if we didn't start this 4 years ago, York would be on the same national stage with the destruction that some of these other cities are seeing right now.
Our vision has been that York develop a reputation as One York, a peaceful and thriving community, whereas mutual respect, trust, transparency, and cooperation exists between law enforcement and our community.
I was given the chance to be able to attend the police chief and clergy meetings, and I want to be a police officer when I graduate from high school, so I find it very helpful, and it's a very interesting way to see different perspectives from different police departments, not just York City, but from different counties around Pennsylvania. And it's really interesting to see how all of us come together, and it makes us as one, and it makes me have hope for the future.
And it was really impactful because, especially being half black, I wanted to understand the perspective from both sides. I don't want to just get the story from one side.
I remember that day, the police chiefs came to me and said, we want to be a part of this discussion. We're a little concerned that we're going to get attacked. We have been meeting every month for 4 years because this is important, and frankly, the issue has not gone away.
So I am very grateful to all the pastors over the last few years and to the chiefs and their departments that we had this dialogue, because I think we would be in the same boat.
The York County Association of Chiefs of Police continues to uphold our commitment to that law enforcement officers treat all individuals, whether they are complainant, suspect, or defendant, with full dignity and respect they deserve as human beings. As Chiefs of Police and clergy, we stand united in the pursuit of a thriving and just York County.
Well, Aaron Anderson and Pastor Bill Kearney, it is so good to see both of you sitting virtually, that is. Wish we could be in person, but it's just great to have you joining me on State of Independence. And what you are doing is so amazing. Tell me, well, Pastor Anderson, you are also a headmaster of a school. Tell me about the school that you serve, and then about how you came to do this.
Yeah, so great to be with you, Joe, and thanks for having us on. So Logos Academy is in York, Pennsylvania, York City. We're a small town like many other cities throughout the Commonwealth that have significant urban education challenges. We started as a Christ-centered classical school. We're really a private school that exists for kids that can't afford a private education. And so we started back in '98, and our kids are very diverse, not only socioeconomically, but racially. And so we know that giving the kids an education is just not enough. We've got to make sure that they have opportunities to succeed. And part of that is having safe and thriving communities. So, you know, when we entered into this conversation, we said, first of all, for me, I can't speak for all the pastors, but for me, I was thinking about our kids in the school, making sure that they had a community that was going to be fairly and equitably policed.
That's wonderful. Now you're also a pastor. You're not just a headmaster of a school. You're also a pastor. So you have clearly what sounds like a pastor's heart. How did you come to do this? What was it that made you think that this would be a way to go? This would be a way to kind of help our city, help our neighbors. How did you think about, how did this come to you to do this?
Well, I would say my good friend Pastor Kearney and I always reminds us as a group that this was God's doing. You know, God called us together. Now we had been friends and had some friendship with another pastor, Bishop Carl Scott and Dr. Larry Waltauer. We had developed some friendship here, and we came together really, and I think God put it on our hearts jointly to say, we have to do something different. And we had a good relationship, and we said, you know, we've got a relationship with some law enforcement. Let's reach out and let's just see if we can. It really was, there was nothing, we didn't read a book. It just was the move of God on our hearts to do something.
Yeah. Pastor Kearney, tell me how you got involved.
Well, again, Joe, thank you so much for having us here on your show today. It's definitely, this is God sent also. Baltimore is 45 minutes away from York. The Freddie Gray incident was taking place, rioting, they were burning up the city. Destruction was taking place, lives were being lost. We didn't want that spirit, that flavor to come up 83 North to affect York City and our county. Well, as pastors, as spiritual leaders, our first instruction is to pray. So we went before God, went before the Lord. Lord, what can we do to head this off? Distinctly, I heard the voice of the Lord. Start a dialogue, build a relationship with the police chiefs in York County, come together, develop a strategic plan on how we can head off any violence here in York County.
And what's amazing is that it must be that the police chiefs were open to this as well. I mean, obviously.
Not at first.
Not at first. Oh, really? What happened?
Not at first. They were, again, because of the national agenda that was going on, painting our police departments as the enemy. They had a wall. They had barriers built up. They thought they were going to come to a meeting and get attacked. Mm-hmm. They didn't know what to expect. So the walls was up, Joe. That first meeting was so full of tension. It was so full of the unexpected that we had to break down that barrier. We had to break down those walls. By the end of that first meeting in September of 2016, people left out of that meeting, Joe, saying, this was one of the best meetings that we've ever attended. Why? Because God ordained it. Because God called us together. Because we followed and we heard from the Lord. I'm telling you, this is spiritual in action.
Yeah, that's wonderfully said. I mean, unless God builds the house, it can't stand, right? And
that's right.
Clearly, this is a house that God built, and God used you all to do that. I mean, what a marvelous thing. What a wonderful example for cities around and towns around the country to follow. I mean, this is not a story that you hear about. The story that you would normally hear is that, you know, there was unrest and people were at odds and they stay at odds, and the protests escalate and they get worse, and and people go to jail and stuff gets burned and destroyed. And you haven't seen that happen. You've been doing this now for nearly 5 years, going on 5 years in York, right?
Yeah, 5 years, and and last year, two of my students that were seniors led actually a Black Lives Matter protest in downtown York. About 1,500 people came out right after the George Floyd incident, and it was remarkably, as has been our other gatherings, have been remarkably peaceful. There's still a lot of opinions. We're certainly not saying we've sort of solved everything, but I do think we're changing the flavor of what's happening in our community by, Scripture says that we're called to be peacemakers, which means that, as the people of God, we shouldn't be avoiding conflict, but probably running into it as the people of Christ to kind of bring people together with peace.
Yeah, the message, Joe, here is that the states and entities want to take God out of everything. No, our job as spiritual leaders is to bring God into the midst of the situation and allow God to move. We're not taking God out. We want God involved in what we do. That is the message that we need to get across. God is still in control.
Well, the beauty is that people are able to see God in you, and that may be the only God they see in these days and times. So it's a blessing that God is able to use you for His purpose in this really challenging time in which we live. I wonder. So tell me about the progress over the last nearly 5 years that's been made. I mean, we saw that wonderful video that showed you all talking. That showed you all pastors, our wonderful headmaster Aaron Anderson, you talking, and then the police chief talking as well. Tell me a little bit about how things are going and the evolution from that first tense meeting where you could cut the tension with a knife to what we have today.
Well, so I can tell you, structurally, let Pastor Kearney maybe speak to some of the relationships that have developed. One of the things is, and Joe, you probably know as being a Pennsylvania guy, our county has 18 different police departments. So that's 18 different, in a county of 450,000 people, that's 18 different police chiefs, 18 different law enforcement agencies. That doesn't include our district attorney and our county police. And so, first of all, organizing an effort where we can bring everyone together is kind of a mammoth undertaking. Pennsylvania is a small township state, and so just that alone, getting that organization has been something. But we've regularly met every month for almost 5 years now.
How many of the 18 police chiefs have you been able to get to and to take part?
We've been able to get to all of them. They don't. That doesn't mean they're all coming to all of the meetings all the time. But last year, after the George Floyd incident, something that almost went unpicked up by the media, although we pushed it out there, all 18 police chiefs came together with the Black Ministers Association, with other community and business leaders, in a really clear unity statement saying that we saw in Minnesota with regard to the George Floyd incident, we said that is not the way we want to police York County. And it was a unity statement. We had 100% participation in that. So really at this point, all those folks are bought in. We're collaborating in lots of different ways. And really a lot of relationships are being built between our predominantly white police chiefs in the county and our communities of color right here in York County.
Yeah. So tell me something about Police Chief King, because we're going to have him on in a little bit. And I know that he's been central to all this. Tell us a little bit about him before he comes on.
Well, he's an ally. This is a gentleman, first of all, he's born again. He knows God. And even though he holds a position of authority, he knows where his authority comes from. So pleasant to work with, a great man, great individual. We have taped together churches. He belongs to a very large church here in York County, LCBC. And they have called us together because of the relationship that we have. They have called us together to speak to their leadership about what we have accomplished, talking about relationship, what we have accomplished together as police and clergy We spoke to their leadership because we had the message of unity and fellowship. They developed a video that they've shown throughout their whole organization about the relationship that we have. He's a great guy. And you'll hear that. You'll pick that up, Joe, the moment he starts opening up his mouth and you talk to him. Let me just speak very quickly in regards to that George Floyd incident that took place and the 18 police chiefs coming together in unity, condemning that action, standing together, the impact that had on our county, the impact that had on our state, the impact that had on our nation, we believe is going far beyond York County and what we're coming together to witness and see the unity and the effect of what we do together here in York County.
Yeah, wonderfully said, wonderfully said. I just love what you're doing. I think it's a model for every city in the country. And it's amazing that more people, I mean, haven't followed your example. We've got people spending lots of money on all these programs to bring people together, but very, very few people who have done what you've done in the city of York, which is just amazing. Tell me, what are you praying for as you consider the future for York? What do you pray for?
You know, I think I'll say from our perspective, our group, in terms of the goals that we've set out, is we really want to see one York that's united, that where, you know, all of us, you know, as dads and granddads and even our students, and, you know, we want this community to be a place where everyone thrives and everyone prospers. And we see the relationships between our community and between our police departments, one where the police respect and serve well and are faithful in their work, but also where we as a community respect and love and uphold and pray for those servants that wear that uniform and that are here to protect us. That we know they want to go home at night too, safe and sound to their families. I mean, that's what we're after as a peaceful, thriving community right here in York. That I think our hope would be that we were sort of city set on a hill that people would look at and say, this is different.
Yeah, that's
Joe, that's a great question. The Bible declares that God commands the blessing in unity. When we all come together, what my prayer is that we want to see a mighty move of God here in York County, bringing us together, and that mighty move of God will spread abroad and will bring this nation together in love. Love is the answer. Love is the key. We need to destroy hate. We need to destroy evil. And when we come together in unity, God will command a mighty blessing that we all will be able to receive. A mighty move of God.
Oh, that's beautifully said. Beautifully said. That'd be my hope and prayer for York City and for every city around the country. Just so beautifully said by both of you. Well, Aaron Anderson, you, brother, along with you, Brother Kearney, are proving that by caring enough to listen and by being humble enough to admit you don't know everything, that there's a table big enough for everyone. So thank you for placing the power of prayer at the center of this mission. There is no other way to heal broken cities. Thanks for being our guest today on State of Independence.
Amen. Thanks, man.
Thank you, Joe.
We'll be right back.
Learn more about Joe Watkins and the mission of this program at joewatkins.net. And tell Joe what you thought about today's program in the comment box.
The Springettsbury Township Police Department in York County covers some 16 square miles and is charged with protecting a population of nearly 27,000 residents. Its police chief was a 22-year veteran of the force when he was given the top post 3 years ago. Welcome, Chief Todd King.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
I'm delighted to have you. Well, the men, Pastor Anderson and Pastor Kearney, spoke so highly of you and about your commitment. Tell me, Did they teach you any of this stuff in the police academy when you first were getting ready to join the force? Did they give you any sense that this might be coming and this is how you might prepare for it?
I would have to say no to that. When you join the police force, really you have a community commitment. That's what you're there for. To a man, I can say that the people I know are those who want to make a difference in their community. But what I've learned through the years, I've learned from people like Pastor Kearney and Pastor Anderson, great men. Always difficult to follow them because of how well they speak. So I do appreciate their praise.
Yeah. So tell me what you've learned from these meetings with the pastors in the city of York, and tell me what's the hardest thing for you as a police chief to get across to the men and women who serve under you.
Well, the meetings with the pastors and chiefs really are about building relationships. It's all about having that empathy, being able to put yourself in a position that somebody else has and be able to see it from their perspective. Without those relationships, it just doesn't exist. We don't have that ability to see from each other's perspective. And that's probably the hardest thing even to get across to the officers. The fact, police work is a very difficult job in that we deal with people that are at their worst pretty much on a regular basis. And it bleeds cynicism into people. So getting away from that cynical attitude, having them understand that that's not the thought process of everybody. It's just the few that we deal with on a regular basis. Having that empathy, being able to speak to people, being able to build those relationships and trust the community. That's probably the most difficult part, especially with today's national narrative.
Yeah, well, seeing you as a police chief who happens to be white, bonding with white and black pastors and sharing a sense of empathy and understanding with the community of color means a great deal, and certainly is probably one of the reasons why where you live hasn't experienced some of the upheaval that other places have experienced. How do you get across to your fellow officers how to deal with people of color, especially if they have to stop them, if there's a traffic violation or a need for a traffic stop? What do you tell them?
Well, we actually partnered with the Department of Justice back in 2016, and the pastors and chiefs, clergy and chiefs came together about that same time. And what we found, we voluntarily partnered with them in order to discover blind spots for those very reasons, put deeper roots into the community and try to figure out what we're missing, what we don't see. And part of that training came through there. And then we invited the members of the Black Ministers Association into different trainings with us. And I think those type of situations where we can actually get into each other's world, see each other for who we are, has gone a long way, and it's brought the officers to that point. But the newer officers coming on, one of the things we look for when we do our recruitment is that officer capable to have a sense of empathy? Do they have emotional intelligence? Can they put themselves in that situation and say, okay, look, this is not the world in general. People are going to react differently to me depending upon how they were raised and what their culture says.
Yeah. How do you help the white residents where you live to understand the good work that you're doing? There may be some people who would rather you have a heavy hand in all this. Some people are saying, well, I'm about law and order, and we need to do it in a more heavy-handed way. And clearly you're not doing that. You're doing it in a way that's effective without the heavy hand. How do you get that across to citizens where you live who happen to be white, who may want you to be more harsh in your tactics?
It's all about communication. The more communication we have, the better off we are. And I'd say to them, the results speak for themselves. Since the clergy and chiefs came together right after the Freddie Gray incident, we have not had the rioting and the protests and so forth that other communities have had. And I lend a lot of that to this organization. They're out in the community day in and day out, spreading the word that we don't need this type of behavior here. They help us with the community members. They help make us legitimate. They really do. And I can't thank Pastor Kearney and the organization enough.
That's wonderfully said, Chief King. Well, Chief King, thank you for sharing your heart and caring so deeply about the residents you protect in your community. And thank you for demonstrating to all of us, especially those of us not in law enforcement, the power of listening. Thanks so much, Chief.
Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Appreciate it. Thank
wonderful.
you very much.
This is a blessing, so we appreciate you. We'll be right back.
Share what you've learned on today's program by first connecting with Joe directly on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Get started at joewatkins.net.
So now let's talk to our great producer, Jeff Coleman.
Well, I think if we get police chiefs across the country to watch this program today, they'll be able to save their communities a lot of money.
Yeah, I love this, Jeff. I mean, this is such a good story, and it should be a story that everybody knows and other cities can copy. This is one time where you can copy, and you don't have to worry about infringement, copyright infringement. Just do what they're doing.
That's right.
Do what they're doing.
Yeah.
I just loved it. I love the heart of the police chief.
It came through. Yeah. And I know there are communities out there saying, well, we can't allow this kind of a conversation to happen. This is independently happening. These are American citizens coming together to pray for their communities. And this is not done in the official capacity. This isn't a prayer service being held by the township or the county or the city. These are individuals coming together saying, how do we help understand each other? And then in the most intimate way to say, we're going to pray for each other. How do you hate somebody if you have been praying for their police department and the police department is praying for your church congregation? It changes the whole thing.
Yeah, it changes the whole dynamic.
Yeah.
And these folks aren't looking for any publicity. They're not doing it for any self-gain.
Yeah.
They just love their neighbor like they love themselves, and so they're doing this. There's no money in this for Aaron Anderson or for Pastor Bill Kearney, but God is so pleased when people do this, when they let other people see Christ in them.
It diffuses the bomb. I mean, in a very literal way, the tensions that are there. Now, think about if you applied this to politics, Republicans and Democrats, maybe once a month coming together for a meeting to talk about things that maybe they agree on. I mean, it's so many implications for it, and I hope this program is helpful in that regard.
Yeah. Well, what a wonderful heart that they had, and they're doing such a great thing. Well, there is power in listening and learning from the life experience, including the fears of others. Aaron Anderson and Chief King and Bill Kearney and all the pastors and police chiefs who meet every month in York are doing something we should consider doing as neighbors, praying for each other in person, by name. I hope today's program frees you from fear and allows you to love the Lord with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and your neighbor as yourself. That's what this program is all about. Thanks in advance for dropping me a quick message in the comment box at joewatkins.org. It means a lot to me and our guests to know how this program is helping and encouraging you. From America's first capital, Philadelphia, I'm Joe Watkins. Thanks so much for watching. What a blessing.
Yeah, and their heart really came through. Yeah. Each of them, Pastor Kearney's heart is right out there, and you can see why his congregation probably loves him.
Joe Watkins' State of Independence is a production of Lighthouse TV, positively different. Made possible in part because of the support of viewers like you.